In the quiet town of Willow Creek, nestled deep in the forested mountains, there was a long-forgotten cemetery known as Evergreen Hollow. Its weathered tombstones, half hidden by overgrown ivy and twisted roots, bore the names of souls who had departed this world centuries ago. Local legend spoke of a particular grave in Evergreen Hollow, a grave marked only by a simple, weathered headstone inscribed with the name Lucinda Blackwell. According to the tales whispered among the townsfolk, Lucinda was a witch who had been condemned for practicing dark magic in the early 1800s. She was said to have cursed anyone who dared disturb her final resting place. One moonless night, a group of thrill-seeking teenagers, Jake, Emily, and Ben, decided to test the legends surrounding Lucinda's grave. Armed with flashlights and fueled by bravado, they ventured into the shadowy depths of Evergreen Hollow, their footsteps muffled by fallen leaves and the eerie silence of the forest. As they approached Lucinda's grave, a chill wind swept through the cemetery, carrying with it a faint whisper that seemed to echo their names. Goosebumps prickled on their skin, but they pressed on, their nerves tingling with a mixture of fear and excitement. Emily, the skeptic of the group, scoffed at the superstitions. "It's just an old story meant to scare us," she declared, though her voice wavered slightly in the cool night air. Ben, the daredevil, grinned nervously. "Only one way to find out," he said, his voice carrying a hint of uncertainty. Jake, the cautious one, hesitated. He had heard the warnings from his grandmother, who had grown up in Willow Creek and knew the tales of Lucinda Blackwell all too well. But curiosity got the better of him, and he joined his friends beside the grave. Together, they formed a circle around Lucinda's headstone, their flashlights casting long shadows on the ground. The air grew thick with anticipation as they held their breath, waiting for something, anything, to happen. Suddenly, a soft glow enveloped Lucinda's grave, illuminating the weathered headstone with an unearthly light. Emily gasped, her eyes widening in disbelief, while Ben let out a nervous chuckle that quickly faded into silence. Jake's heart raced as he watched in awe, a knot of dread tightening in the pit of his stomach. The whispers grew louder, swirling around them like a sinister melody sung by unseen lips. And then, as if in response to their presence, the ground beneath Lucinda's grave began to tremble. The earth cracked open with a deafening roar, revealing a yawning black pit that seemed to descend into the depths of the underworld itself. A foul stench filled the air, a mixture of decay and something far more sinister. From the depths of the pit, a pale, gnarled hand emerged. A hand that clawed its way to the surface with agonizing slowness, its elongated fingers curling around the edge of the grave. Frozen with terror, Jake, Emily, and Ben watched in horror as a figure emerged from the darkness. A figure cloaked in tattered black robes, its face obscured by a hooded cowl. Its eyes gleamed with a malevolent light as it fixed its gaze upon them, a silent promise of vengeance from beyond the grave. With a guttural moan, the specter of Lucinda Blackwell rose from the depths of her grave, her form ethereal and translucent. She floated above the ground, her presence radiating an aura of ancient malice and unbridled rage. "Who dares disturb my slumber?" Lucinda's voice echoed through the cemetery, a haunting melody that sent shivers down their spines. Unable to move, Jake, Emily, and Ben stood rooted to the spot, their minds reeling with fear and disbelief. The air grew colder, and the whispers of the forest seemed to join in the spectral chorus that surrounded them. "You have awakened the curse," Lucinda intoned, her voice filled with a chilling certainty. "Now you shall suffer the consequences." With a wave of her hand, the air crackled with dark energy, enveloping the teenagers in a suffocating grip. Their screams echoed through the night as they were engulfed by a swirling vortex of shadows, their forms twisting and contorting in agony. And as quickly as it had begun, the spectral tempest subsided, leaving behind only silence and the faint scent of lingering magic. Lucinda Blackwell's grave lay undisturbed once more, its secrets buried beneath the weight of centuries-old curses and the unending darkness of Evergreen Hollow. In the years that followed, Willow Creek became a town haunted by the memory of that fateful night. A cautionary tale whispered among the living, a reminder that some legends are born from truth, and that the restless spirits of the past should never be awakened. And so, Evergreen Hollow remained a solemn reminder of the price paid for curiosity and the dangers of meddling with forces beyond mortal understanding. As the years passed in Willow Creek, the tale of Lucinda Blackwell and the cursed cemetery of Evergreen Hollow became etched into the town's folklore. A cautionary tale told to children and whispered among adults on dark, stormy nights. The incident had left an indelible mark on Jake, Emily, and Ben, who had miraculously survived the encounter but bore the psychological scars of their brush with the supernatural. Jake, now a grown man haunted by nightmares of that fateful night, had become an amateur historian, delving into the town's archives in search of any mention of Lucinda Blackwell or similar occurrences throughout Willow Creek's history. Emily had moved away from Willow Creek shortly after the incident, seeking solace in the anonymity of city life, but finding herself constantly looking over her shoulder, afraid that Lucinda's curse might still find her. Ben, on the other hand, remained in Willow Creek, unable to shake off the feeling of guilt for having suggested they visit the cemetery in the first place. One stormy autumn evening, a letter arrived at Jake's doorstep, its envelope bearing the official seal of Willow Creek's Historical Society. Inside was a faded journal dating back to the early 1800s, written by none other than Sheriff Jacob Reynolds, the father of Lucinda Blackwell, the town's infamous witch. With trembling hands, Jake leafed through the fragile pages, his eyes widening as he uncovered the truth hidden within the cryptic entries. Sheriff Reynolds had indeed been a devoted lawman, but his journal revealed a darker side, a man consumed by grief and obsession after the disappearance of his beloved daughter, Lucinda. According to the journal, Lucinda had shown a remarkable aptitude for herbalism and healing, skills that had drawn the suspicions of the townsfolk who believed her talents were rooted in witchcraft. As tensions mounted, Lucinda's mother fell gravely ill, and the desperate sheriff turned to a local witch hunter named Matthias Blackwood for help. Blackwood, a charismatic but ruthless man, had arrived in Willow Creek with promises of purging the town of its alleged witches and restoring order. Sheriff Reynolds, driven by fear and a desire to protect his family, reluctantly agreed to Blackwood's methods, unaware of the true extent of the witch hunter's fanaticism. The journal chronicled Blackwood's relentless pursuit of Lucinda, his accusations growing more fervent as he unearthed supposed evidence of her involvement in dark rituals and malevolent spells. Despite Lucinda's protests of innocence, she was ultimately captured and condemned to death by hanging, her fate sealed by the hysteria and paranoia that gripped the town. Sheriff Reynolds, torn between duty and love for his daughter, had attempted to intervene, but Blackwood's influence was too great. Lucinda's execution had been swift and brutal, witnessed by a horrified crowd that included her grief-stricken father. The final entry in the journal spoke of Sheriff Reynolds' vow to protect his daughter's grave from desecration, fearing that the anger and pain of her unjust death might manifest into something far more sinister, a curse that would haunt Willow Creek for generations to come. As Jake pieced together the tragic story of Lucinda Blackwell, he realized that the events of that night in Evergreen Hollow had been more than a mere ghostly apparition. Lucinda's restless spirit had sought justice, and in her anger, she had unleashed a curse upon those who had disturbed her eternal slumber. Determined to uncover the truth and perhaps find a way to lift the curse, Jake returned to Willow Creek, where he sought out Emily and Ben. Together, they retraced their steps to Evergreen Hollow, armed not with flashlights and bravado, but with the knowledge gleaned from Sheriff Reynolds' journal and a newfound sense of purpose. As they stood before Lucinda's grave once more, the air thick with the weight of history and sorrow, Jake, Emily, and Ben performed a solemn ritual of remembrance and forgiveness. They spoke words of regret and apology, acknowledging the injustice that had befallen Lucinda and the role unwittingly played by their ancestors. And then, as if in response to their heartfelt plea, the atmosphere around them shifted. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it a sense of peace and closure. The glow that had once enveloped Lucinda's grave now faded, replaced by a serene stillness that settled over Evergreen Hollow like a comforting blanket. Jake, Emily, and Ben exchanged solemn glances, a silent acknowledgement of the forgiveness they hoped they had earned. As they turned to leave the cemetery, a single white lily bloomed at the foot of Lucinda's grave, a symbol of purity and renewal, a sign that perhaps, at long last, Lucinda Blackwell's restless spirit had found the peace it had long been denied. And so, the tale of Lucinda Blackwell and the haunted cemetery of Evergreen Hollow came full circle, a testament to the enduring power of forgiveness and redemption. Willow Creek remained a town steeped in history and haunted by its past, but Jake, Emily, and Ben knew that they had played a part in setting things right. A small beacon of light in the darkness that had shrouded Lucinda's memory for far too long. As Jake, Emily, and Ben left the cemetery of Evergreen Hollow that solemn evening, a sense of closure settled over them like a gentle mist. The white lily blooming at Lucinda Blackwell's grave seemed to glow with a faint, ethereal light, a silent testament to the peace they hoped they had brought to her restless spirit. In the days that followed, Willow Creek seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief, as if the town itself had sensed the lifting of an ancient burden. The whispers of Lucinda Blackwell's curse gradually faded into the background, replaced by a renewed sense of harmony and tranquility. Jake dedicated himself to preserving the history of Willow Creek, sharing Sheriff Reynolds' journal with the town's historical society and ensuring that Lucinda's story was remembered not as a tale of fear and tragedy, but as a lesson in forgiveness and understanding. Emily, now back in the city but forever connected to Willow Creek by the bonds forged in their shared ordeal, found solace in the knowledge that Lucinda's spirit had found peace. She returned to visit Jake and Ben often, their friendship strengthened by the events they had faced together. Ben, still haunted by guilt over his role in suggesting they visit Lucinda's grave that fateful night, took it upon himself to honor her memory in a different way. He volunteered to help restore Evergreen Hollow Cemetery, clearing away the overgrown ivy and repairing the weathered tombstones so that future generations could visit in peace. As the years passed, the tale of Lucinda Blackwell and the cursed cemetery of Evergreen Hollow became a distant memory, a story shared with wide-eyed children on Halloween nights. Willow Creek flourished, its residents living in harmony with the natural beauty of the Appalachian Mountains, the shadows of the past no longer casting a pall over their lives. Yet, one crisp autumn evening, a visitor arrived in Willow Creek, a young woman named Emma, who had recently inherited a quaint bed and breakfast on the outskirts of town. Intrigued by the local history, she began to explore the town's archives and stumbled upon the tale of Lucinda Blackwell. Driven by curiosity, Emma ventured into Evergreen Hollow Cemetery one moonlit night, her flashlight casting long shadows as she wandered among the weathered tombstones. She paused before Lucinda's grave, the white lily still blooming at its base, and felt a strange sensation wash over her. A tingling at the back of her neck, a whisper on the wind. Suddenly, the air grew colder, and Emma's breath misted before her eyes. She turned to see a faint figure standing among the trees, a woman cloaked in shadow, her eyes gleaming with a haunting light. "Who disturbs my rest?" The spectral voice echoed through the cemetery, sending a chill down Emma's spine. Fear gripped Emma's heart, but she summoned her courage and spoke, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I come in peace," she said, her words carrying across the stillness of the night. "I seek to learn your story, to understand the truth that has been lost to time." The figure hesitated, its form flickering like a candle in the wind. Slowly, it approached Emma, its presence ethereal and inscrutable. "My name is Lucinda Blackwell," the ghostly figure finally whispered, its voice filled with a mixture of sorrow and resignation. "I was accused unjustly, condemned for crimes I did not commit." Emma listened intently as Lucinda recounted her tale. The accusations, the betrayal, and the pain of losing everything she held dear. She spoke of her father's desperate attempts to save her, and the relentless persecution that had led to her untimely death. Moved by Lucinda's story, Emma vowed to share it with the world, to ensure that her memory lived on beyond the confines of Evergreen Hollow. She promised to honor Lucinda's legacy, to seek justice for the injustices of the past, and to never forget the lessons learned from Willow Creek's haunted history. As dawn broke over Evergreen Hollow, Emma bid farewell to Lucinda's spirit, her heart heavy with the weight of the encounter yet lifted by a sense of purpose. She returned to her bed and breakfast where she began to write the story of Lucinda Blackwell, the cursed cemetery of Evergreen Hollow, and the enduring power of forgiveness and redemption. And so, Willow Creek's tale continued to echo through the ages. A story of sorrow and loss, of courage and compassion, and of the unbreakable bonds that connect the past to the present and the living to the dead. Years passed since Emma's encounter with Lucinda Blackwell's spirit in Evergreen Hollow. The bed and breakfast she inherited became a haven for travelers seeking respite in the tranquil beauty of Willow Creek. The town itself had prospered, its streets bustling with locals and tourists drawn to its historical charm and scenic landscapes. Emma had fulfilled her promise to share Lucinda's story, publishing a book that recounted the tragic events of centuries past and the enduring legacy of forgiveness that had emerged from them. The book became a bestseller, capturing the hearts and imaginations of readers around the world who marveled at the tale of a cursed cemetery and the redemption that had come to Willow Creek. As her bed and breakfast flourished, Emma welcomed guests from all walks of life, some seeking adventure, others drawn by curiosity or a desire for solace. Many came to explore Evergreen Hollow Cemetery, now meticulously maintained thanks to Ben's efforts over the years. The white lily that had bloomed at Lucinda's grave that fateful night had become a symbol of peace and remembrance, carefully tended by the townspeople who honored Lucinda's memory. One autumn evening, a young couple arrived at Emma's bed and breakfast. An artist named Sarah and her husband Daniel, a historian fascinated by local legends. They had traveled from the city to escape the noise and chaos of urban life, drawn to Willow Creek by the allure of its haunted history. During their stay, Sarah and Daniel explored Evergreen Hollow Cemetery, their footsteps echoing through the silent rows of tombstones as they marveled at the beauty and serenity of the place. They paused before Lucinda's grave, the white lily shimmering in the fading light of the setting sun, and Daniel recounted the tale of Lucinda Blackwell that had captured his imagination since childhood. As Sarah listened, she felt a strange sensation, a tingling at the back of her neck, a whisper on the wind that seemed to carry a message just beyond her understanding. She turned to see a faint figure standing among the trees, a woman cloaked in shadow, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "Who dares disturb my rest?" The spectral voice echoed through the cemetery, sending a shiver down Sarah's spine. Daniel, undeterred by the ghostly presence, stepped forward and spoke with reverence. "We come in peace," he said, his voice filled with respect for the spirit that had captured his imagination for so long. "We seek to understand your story, to honor your memory." The figure hesitated, its form wavering like smoke in the breeze. Slowly, it approached Sarah and Daniel, its presence both haunting and mesmerizing. "My name is Lucinda Blackwell," the ghostly figure finally whispered, its voice carrying a weight of centuries-old sorrow. "I was wrongfully accused, condemned unjustly for crimes I did not commit." Sarah and Daniel listened in awe as Lucinda recounted her tale. The accusations, the betrayal, and the anguish of losing everything she held dear. They felt a deep empathy for the injustice that had befallen her and a determination to ensure her story was never forgotten. Moved by Lucinda's plight, Sarah vowed to capture the essence of her spirit in her paintings, to immortalize Lucinda's resilience and the enduring power of forgiveness. Daniel, inspired by the encounter, resolved to continue researching Willow Creek's history, uncovering more about Lucinda's life and the events that had shaped her tragic fate. As dawn broke over Evergreen Hollow, Sarah and Daniel bid farewell to Lucinda's spirit, their hearts heavy with the weight of her story, yet uplifted by a sense of purpose and connection. They returned to Emma's bed and breakfast, where they shared their experience with her and vowed to contribute to the ongoing legacy of Lucinda Blackwell. And so, Willow Creek continued to thrive, a town where the past intertwined with the present, where stories of sorrow and redemption resonated through the ages. Lucinda Blackwell's spirit, once tormented by injustice, had found solace in the hearts and minds of those who sought to understand and honor her memory. As visitors came and went, drawn by the tale of a cursed cemetery and the spirit that had found peace within its hallowed grounds, Willow Creek remained a testament to the enduring power of forgiveness, compassion, and the unbreakable bonds that connect us all. And in the quiet moments of dusk, when the shadows grew long and the wind whispered through the trees, some swore they could still hear the faint echo of Lucinda's voice, a gentle reminder that even in the darkest of times, There is always hope for light and understanding.